There are things that start as a joke and end as a mistake that cannot be undone. Reckless ideas, absurd challenges, and moments when someone thought nothing could go wrong. These are real, shocking, and sad cases in which the lack of limits turned fun into tragedy. This is not meant to make you laugh, it is meant to make you reflect and understand how everything spiraled out of control. And that is exactly what you're going to see here today. So go ahead and leave your like, click the subscribe button, and let's get started. In February of 2019, a girl from Washington, only 13 years old, lost her life after taking part in one of those dangerous games that circulate among teenagers as if they were harmless. Gabby Perez was a 7th grade student at Cascade Middle School, described by friends and family as cheerful, full of energy, and always smiling. She ended up getting involved in what is known as the choking game, also called the blackout game. The idea of the game is simple, and precisely because of that, many people underestimate it. The person cuts off their breathing for a few moments until losing consciousness, believing that everything will return to normal shortly after. On the 6th of February, that did not happen. Gabby never woke up. Days later, dozens of people gathered at night for a candlelight vigil in honor of the teenager. Friends, parents, and schoolmates tried to understand how something treated as a joke could end this way. Many reported shock and disbelief, especially because it involved someone so young. The school administration sent a letter to families informing them about the sudden death of the student and offering psychological support to students. Counseling teams were made available to help anyone who needed assistance in dealing with the situation. Police stated that an investigation had been opened and that they were awaiting the official medical examiner's report before releasing further details. Until then, there had been no record of other similar cases linked to the school. This type of game is not something to be repeated, tested, or treated as a challenge. A thoughtless choice made on impulse can change everything in seconds. In 2014, a water park in Kansas inaugurated Verrückt, a waterslide so tall that it received the German name for insane. The promise was simple: attract attention with speed, height, and a world record. From the beginning, employees and engineers expressed doubts. Tests were carried out with sandbags, adjustments were made constantly, and even so, no one seemed truly certain that everything was under control. Still, the ride was open to the public and became the main attraction of the Schlitterbahn Park in Kansas City. In August of 2016, during a normal day of operation, a 10-year-old boy went down the slide accompanied by 2 adults in a raft. Something went wrong at the final stretch. The safety structure was struck, and the impact caused a fatal injury. The boy was the son of a Kansas state politician, which caused the case to gain immediate national attention. Witnesses reported strange noises, screams, and a scene of complete desperation. Emergency teams arrived quickly, but there was nothing more that could be done. The park closed the ride that same day, and after that, Verrückt never operated again in any forms. Investigations pointed to serious inspection failures, poor training, and little state oversight. Employees even stated that the accident was not exactly a surprise, unfortunately. This case leaves a clear message. Turning risk into entertainment may seem exciting, but it is not worth the price it can cost your life. This case happened in the early morning hours of the 19th of January of 2000 in a college dormitory in New Jersey called Boland Hall. Around 4:30 in the morning, the fire alarm began to sound. For many students, it seemed like just another false alarm. The building had already registered around 20 alarms since the beginning of the academic year, almost always over something trivial. Because of that, many people simply stayed in bed waiting for the noise to stop. But this time, it was different. Soon screams could be heard in the hallways and desperate calls for help. Smoke began to spread quickly, especially on the 3rd floor where visibility became practically zero. Some students tried to leave through the corridors. Others closed their doors and improvised ropes with bed sheets to escape through the windows. There were those who jumped from a height of 3 stories, injuring themselves in the fall. Resident assistants returned to the building several times to warn those who were still inside. Video. In total, 3 young people, all 18 years old, died, and more than 50 were injured, some with consequences consequences that would last the rest of their lives. The investigation revealed something even harder to accept. The fire started as a prank. Two drunk students decided to set fire to a banner to trigger the alarm and get everyone out of bed in the intense cold of that night. They did not expect the fire to spread, but it did. The building did not have a sprinkler system, and the delay in evacuation made everything worse. The result was a tragedy caused by something treated as a joke. A reckless idea done on impulse can completely spiral out of control, and in this case, it cost the lives of innocent people. In 2024, 19-year-old Ryan Satterthwaite died after taking part in a game that had been gaining popularity among groups of friends, inspired by what is known as Run It Straight. Ryan was with friends at a casual gathering when they decided to play a high-impact game. The dynamics are simple, and precisely because of that, many people underestimate it. Two people run straight at each other at full speed, trying to knock the other down purely through collision. There is no protection or professional structure when this happens informally. During one of these attempts, Ryan suffered a serious injury. The impact did not seem unusual to those watching, but it was enough to cause severe damage. He was taken for medical care, but died the following night. Head injury specialists were direct when commenting on the case. According to them, the risk of this type of impact is comparable to jumping off the roof of a house. In fact, days earlier, professionals in the field had already publicly warned that someone would end up dying if this type of practice continued to spread. Run It Straight emerged as an organized competition in Australia and reached New Zealand with events that attracted large crowds. Even in these official versions, participants have already required medical attention after strong collisions. After Ryan's death, organizers reinforced that they do not encourage imitations and stated that any contact sport should only take place in controlled environments with proper supervision. It is not something to test among friends. On the 12th of January of 2007, radio station KDND from Sacramento launched a live on-air challenge with a Nintendo What a Study Wii as the prize, an extremely rare item at the time. The rule was simple and absurd at the same time. Participants had to drink large amounts of water, and whoever lasted the longest without going to the bathroom would win. The competition started early with 18 people inside the studio. Every 15 minutes, everyone had to drink another bottle of water. Anyone who could not, vomited, went to the bathroom, or quit was eliminated. Among the participants was Jennifer Strange, 28 years old, who joined the challenge trying to win the console for her 3 children. During the show, the hosts joked about the competitors' discomfort. At one point, they even ignored a warning from a listener in the healthcare field who called in saying that it could be dangerous. After almost 4 hours, Jennifer quit. She complained of a severe headache and was visibly swollen. Even so, she left the studio on her own and went home. Shortly afterward, she was found dead. The cause of this fatality was a condition caused by extreme water consumption, which disrupts the body's salts and affects vital functions. Jennifer had consumed around 9 liters during the competition. The show was canceled, those involved were fired, and the family sued the company responsible for the program, receiving a multi-million-dollar settlement. A 14-year-old teenager identified as Mateus dos Santos de Souza was returning from school when he decided to scare 2 friends who were walking down the street. According to information, Mateus was riding on the back of a motorcycle driven by a 33-year-old man. When he spotted his friends, he took out his own cell phone and pretended it was a weapon, simulating a robbery just to cause a scare. The idea was to pull a quick prank and move on. The problem is that at that exact moment, a military police patrol car was passing by the area. Officers interpreted the scene as a real robbery. There was an attempt to approach, followed by shots being fired. Matias was hit, and the motorcycle driver was also injured. Both were rescued and taken to healthcare units in the region. The man driving the motorcycle was hospitalized. Matias, unfortunately, did not survive his injuries. The officers involved were removed from duty while the investigation examines the facts. Here is the warning: never make jokes or pranks like this that involve simulating criminal acts, because the consequences can be fatal. A group of teenagers decided to throw eggs at cars during the night, treating it all as fun, but the situation turned into a tragedy within minutes. Among them was a 14-year-old boy who was driving an SUV full of friends. At a certain point, after throwing eggs at other vehicles, the teenagers panicked, saying that an armed man was chasing the car. Trying to escape, the driver accelerated and ran through an intersection at high speed. Security cameras recorded the moment when the SUV hit a pickup truck. Inside it was Sylvia Zavala, 45 years old, who was visiting relatives in Houston to spend New Year's. She died at the scene, just hours before returning home. The teenager who was driving was taken for medical care and then sent to juvenile detention. Even though he was underage, he ended up being charged with homicide. The investigation also raised another delicate question. How did teenagers who were not old enough to drive gain access to a vehicle of that size? Police also identified the man who allegedly chased the group, and he is cooperating with the case. All of this once again shows how a stupid prank, done without thinking about the consequences, can turn into something impossible to fix. In 2017, in the United States, Pedro Ruiz III dreamed of growing on YouTube and believed that an extreme video could attract the followers he wanted so badly. Pedro convinced his girlfriend, Mona Lisa Perez, 19 years old, to take part in a dangerous recording. The plan was simple and completely reckless. He would hold a thick book against his chest while she fired a shot, believing that the object would be able to stop any injury. Pedro said he had tested it before with another book and thought everything was under control. Mona Lisa showed hesitation. She even commented on social media that it would be one of the most dangerous videos ever made and made it clear that the idea was not hers. Even so, the couple set up the cameras inside the house and decided to go through with the recording. At the moment of the test, the book did not work as Pedro expected. The shot went through the improvised protection and seriously injured him. Mona Lisa immediately called emergency services and explained that everything was part of a prank for the internet. Medical teams tried to help, but Pedro did not survive. After the incident, Mona Lisa was arrested and charged with involuntary manslaughter and could face up to 10 years in prison. Family members stated that the two loved each other and that everything was an accident caused by an absurd decision. Jacob Kagel was 28 years old and was known as an action and adventure photographer. He mixed nature, extreme sports, and impressive images, always getting too close to the limit. For many people, ocean whirlpools are something to stay away from. For Jacob, they were almost a playground. Raised in Cornwall, England, he grew up in the sea. He surfed, explored hidden coves, and filmed everything. After losing his older sister while still very young, Jacob began living with the idea of enjoying every second, no matter the cost. That is when the challenges became increasingly extreme. In the following years, he gained recognition with bold photos, awards, and a loyal following on social media. One phenomenon in particular became an obsession: the whirlpools that appeared in the port of Haley during certain tides. They appeared only a few times a year, but were strong enough to pull anything downward. Even while warning followers not to imitate him, Jacob always entered these whirlpools, filming everything from inside the water. On the 28th of May of 2013, during one of these rare appearances, he returned to the location accompanied by a friend. He recorded footage using a horse head to make things more humorous, played with the current, and decided to try one more time. This time something changed. The whirlpool grew quickly. Jacob dove for one last shot and did not return. Minutes later, he was found already lifeless in a nearby area. The case left the community in shock. Jacob's story shows how the constant search for adrenaline can erase the perception of danger. It is not something to test or romanticize. Not every image or video is worth the risk of never coming back. Everything seemed perfect to celebrate Megan's 16th birthday. She gathered her closest friends, the cake was on the table, and the mood was playful. At the moment of blowing out the candles, Megan makes a joke, saying she would like to be surrounded by better people. Suddenly, one of her friends pushes her face into the cake. Megan faints and falls hard onto the table, hitting her head. She becomes completely unconscious. The most frightening part is that, for several seconds, no one understands the seriousness of the situation. The friends keep laughing, make thoughtless comments and even continue eating the cake around her, thinking it is just another joke. Only after some time does reality begin to sink in. Megan does not respond, does not move, and the mood changes quickly. What was the party turns into panic. The friends finally realize that this was not part of any joke and that the birthday girl needed urgent help. Someone runs to call her mother and emergency services are contacted. The video ends as a disturbing warning. A situation that started as an innocent celebration almost turns into a tragedy because of a lack of empathy. Never play this prank of pushing a friend's face into a cake. It was supposed to be just another childish prank, one of those old and seemingly harmless ones. Yes. A group of children decided to ring a doorbell and run away in a quiet neighborhood of Houston around 11 at night. But this time, the story ended in the worst possible way. According to police, the homeowner came out armed after hearing movement outside. Without any dialogue, he opened fire. One of the shots hit Julian Guzman, an 11-year-old boy, in the back. Even injured, Julian managed to run with his friends for about a block before collapsing in the middle of the street. He was rescued, but did not survive his injuries and died in the hospital. Julian's devastated mother described her son as caring, loving, and always smiling. A child full of life who had everything interrupted by an impulsive and violent decision. The person responsible for the shots was identified as Gonzalo Leon Jr., 42 years old, and was arrested, charged with homicide. Neighbors reported that they saw the children running down the street that night and that they even warned them not to bother the houses. In the end, a stupid prank ended in mourning, pain, and a family destroyed forever. What was supposed to be a lively Independence Day celebration in the United States ended in an absurd and irreversible tragedy. During a neighborhood party in South Carolina, Alan Ray McGrew, 41 years old, decided to pull a stunt that lasted only a few seconds, but cost him his life. According to reports, Alan was in the party mood, dressed in an Uncle Sam costume, dancing, smiling, and celebrating alongside friends and family. In the middle of the excitement, and after consuming alcohol throughout the night, he grabbed a firework, lit it, and placed it on top of his own head, apparently believing he would have time to remove it before the explosions.
Before the big show, she had it all, right? You know, it's a belly dog out. You probably even never.
His wife, who was nearby, even asked him to remove the device, thinking it was just an act before throwing it on the ground. The problem was that the firework was already lit. The explosion happened almost immediately, causing severe head injuries. Alan died at the scene with no chance of rescue. Witnesses were shocked to realize that an action seen as a joke had turned fatal in a matter of moments. The case drew attention precisely because it showed how impulsive decisions made in the heat of the moment can have definitive and permanent consequences. Situations like this leave a clear warning. Fireworks are not toys and should never be used outside their proper purpose. It is not about ruining the festive mood or fun, but about understanding that certain limits exist for a very serious reason. Do not forget to subscribe to watch more videos like this.